Good afternoon. My name is James Colzo, speaking on behalf of EEE5563. I'm a graduate student, and I am 2 months graduation. Looking forward to that. And today I'm going to speak about risks in entrepreneurship, and in my case, I'm a general partner for my restaurant franchise group, and I own a franchise. A little bit of background about myself. My profession is I'm an Air Force pilot. I'm a major in the Air Force, but I consider my passion in entrepreneurship. And to be honest, it truly is my 24/7 full-time job. All right, so for risk, the way I see this broken up is into three categories. You have your financial risk. What if I fail? How am I going to pay for this? Is anything guaranteed? In franchising, a common misnomer is that they guarantee things. We'll talk about that in a moment. Professionally, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to give up your expertise or give up other opportunities to pursue something that might be a little more risky, a little more vague, such as a startup? And personally, I like to say, will your wife agree with this, or your girlfriend, or your loved ones, which I'll also speak about and kind of summarize at the end. All right, financially, the first thing that comes up is you might have a great idea. How are you going to pay for it? So in addition to the slides, I also attached what's called a personal financial statement, and that's going to be the big item that the banks are going to look at when you're going in for a loan. In my case, I have found that smaller banks are willing to accept more risk maybe in their client doing a franchise or a startup versus, let's say, a Wells Fargo or PNC, TD, one of the larger banks. These banks are looking for 20% cash that you have pumped into the business. They like to call that skin in the game. For those of you military personnel in the class, veterans are actually getting priority with the Small Business Association. In fact, I was just reading the Wall Street Journal that they're hoping to boost SBA loans to vets by 7% in 2015. So that's really exciting. Underwriting. The underwriters for the bank are going to look at this personal financial statement. So take a look at that. Looking for 20% cash and really just looking for some type of collateral that if you default on this loan, how are they going to get that money back? In my case, I was lucky and I used a house as collateral for this loan. And they do prefer franchise. In fact, there's actually a preferred franchise list for SBA type loans. So how are you going to get to 20% cash? You could bootstrap it, you could ask friends, family, all things that we discussed in class. And really at the end of the day, could you afford to own a business? The startup funds are one thing. Getting your 20% cash is one thing. In my case, I had a $500,000 loan. I posted $100,000. But what happens in the bad times? Are you going to be able to afford to keep the business afloat, and for how long? So we do all these financial statements, these pro formas. But what happens if those are inaccurate or if the market changes? In my case, I opened my business in 2009, which was, the height of the financial crisis, which no one predicted, which was a good time. Thankfully, I was able to, ride out the storm, which have led to more profitable years. So all things to think about and ways to kind of mitigate that risk. All right, professional risk. What are you giving up by buying your own franchise or possibly getting into a startup? Are you going to get behind your peers if you're coming from a technical expertise such as accounting? In my case, I'm a pilot. I also know an architect. If you're not using those skills, you are going to get behind your peers, losing that skill set, potentially losing seniority, all items to kind of think about going forward. So what I have set up and the way I kind of mitigate this risk is, why not do both? Why not be able to work in your primary job and also work on your startup or your franchise? I like to find win-win situations in which you could do both. So I set this up, uh, and it all began with meditating about what is my perfect day, what would make me happy, and what would kind of facilitate those goals. Somehow I'm able to balance both my actual working job as a pilot and my passion for being an entrepreneur. And I challenge you to do the same thing. Finally, personally, risks involved are, you know, will your wife or your loved ones, your family, friends, will they accept you as a business owner where 24/7 you have demands? I never shut off my business mind when I fly an airplane, or for some of you who are, in school full time, eventually it's over and you shut it off. When you own your own business, you are constantly trying to innovate. You are constantly trying to educate yourself to become more profitable, to streamline, to become more efficient. Those are all things that you can never turn off. And is your loved one going to accept that about you? So we're getting to the end here. To sum things up, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So when I was 25, I bought this franchise, and I thought I was in love, like many of us have, discussing marriage with a girlfriend. And, I bought the business and it changed me. It was something I was passionate about, and it did consume me. It did take time away from our relationship. I started getting questions such as, is this ever going to stop? It's 7 o'clock. Why don't we, turn it off and hang out? So as time progressed, I started realizing that there was no turning it off, and being an entrepreneur and innovating and coming up with a bigger and better business after one is complete is just a part of who I am as a person. And it was great to kind of learn that about myself. Currently, I'm married, and my wife married me because of that person. So, something to reflect on and to think about before you really undergo a life-changing event. Overall, um, desire and belief in what you're doing is going to mitigate all risks. There's risks associated with any technical career field. There's also risk in a startup. There's risk in a franchise. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're trying to sell you something. So if it's something that you love and you truly believe in, I believe that you'll be able to make it work. We discussed financial, professional, and personal risks involved in franchising or a startup in general. I'm going to also speak about creativity in franchising. I look forward to emails, and I look forward to talking about this more. Talk to you soon.